Welcome to Passport to Wealth. I'm your host, Arielle Tucker, certified financial planner and fellow U.S. expat. On this show, we bring together cross-border experts and global Americans to help you make confident decisions about your life, your money, and your next move abroad. Let's get started. Welcome back to Passport to Wealth. I'm your host, Arielle Tucker, and today we're joined by Monica Virga-Alborno, a former Fortune 500 energy engineering executive turned entrepreneur who is redefining what conscious family travel and intentional international living looks like for the modern global family. Originally from New Jersey, she's now based in Norway. Monica is an engineer and a 14-year expat who has lived on 4 continents, explored more than 80 countries, and is raising 2 globally rooted children. Her work is driven by passion for experiential learning, intentional motherhood, and building global communities that empower families to live, travel, and grow with purpose. Monica is the founder of Wander Wild Family Retreats, the only established retreat company in the Americas that openly welcomes children and creates holistic, immersive experiences specifically designed for families. And as soon as I read this, I just always think about like the kinder hotels in Europe. I don't know if you're familiar with the kinder hotels in Europe, but I love how in Europe we have so many retreats and getaways that are for children. And it's like such a different feeling than what we have in the US, where it's like, okay, you just go to like the Hilton and it's just like, it's the Hilton and kids are allowed and kids under 12 stay free, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're welcome. So I love the work that you're doing here. She's also the creator of Wander Her Wild, a growing digital community for modern mothers, and the host of the Wander Her Wild podcast, which is ranked one of the top 10% podcasts worldwide. Congratulations, Monica. That's huge.
Thanks.
She writes on Substacks and contributes to several major publications on parenting, mindful living, and conscious family travel. And we'll be sure to link all of your links below so people can find you and connect with you. But I mean, we're really talking today because you, like me, you're from, the Northeast US. You're originally from New Jersey. You found yourself now living in Norway. And I'm so curious, like you've traveled to 80 countries, you've lived on 4 continents. What did this, what inspired this move and what did the journey for you to Norway even look like?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to chat today and share about Norway and life here and also just how I ended up here. Yeah, after moving to quite a few different places around the world. I studied petroleum and natural gas engineering in university, and I was seeking employment opportunities that were global from the beginning. So when I was in my early 20s, I knew I wanted to have some type of lifestyle that immersed myself in travel while I was also building a career. So I knew that from a pretty early age. And so I was fortunate enough to receive an opportunity right after university, or while I was in university, but as soon as I graduated, was able to move to the Middle East for my first assignment with this global Fortune 500 company. So it's American-based, we do business in English. There's people from all over the world, all corners that work for the company. So it was such an incredible opportunity that I had some stability. Like I knew that I had this company that was helping me relocate. And when you're 24 years old to a country you've never been to, you don't know a single person there. So I had kind of, I think, that initial entry point to global living that was really wonderful if you can find an opportunity like that. And that just kind of started me on this journey and path of working for the same company and just moving from country to country. And I was, as they say, an international mobile position. So they could call you that week and say, hey, you're uprooting your entire life to go to wherever, which is exactly what happened to me. I was working in Kuwait. I had a boyfriend there who was Saudi Arabian, who's now my husband. And I was actually in a technical training in Siberian Russia. So I was working in Kuwait. That's where I was based. We had like communal living. So well, I shouldn't say communal living, but we have like everybody that works for the company that's international all lives in the same building. So you have this really nice community base where everyone is in the same apartment building. You have shared living spaces like a pool and a barbecue space and that kind of stuff. So I was living in that type of environment. And then I was in Siberian Russia for technical training. And while I was finishing up the training, they had my boyfriend and I, because we were a dual career. So we had this opportunity to, we were pretty serious, like pretty quickly. So we joined ourselves to dual career, meaning that they're supposed to try and create moves for you both together because you never really know where you're going to end up. And they had us on conference call and they were like, yeah, you guys are moving to West Africa, like in like a week. so pack up your bag and go. And I'd been living there for almost over 2 years. And we were like, okay, cool, let's go. We don't have kids. We are young. Like, let's just do it. And so it was that kind of lifestyle that was really incredible to be able to have such a, I think, really unique thing that not everyone gets to have, where you have a certain base of stability with this global company that you can rely on to help you with the move and the transition. Not that it's totally easy. There are still complexities picking up and moving, but they do help, with the housing and the relocation and the visas and all that kind of stuff. So that was really wonderful. And that's how we ended up in Angola. I ended up in Angola for 5 years, and we wanted to start a family. And it's a malarial country. There's dengue fever. There's lots of things where it's complicated to try and start a family when you're there. Like, it's not really safe to be trying to have a family there. So that's when we requested to move somewhere. And once you request, they kind of change your contract. So we ended up giving away some perks of being international, some financial perks. We had this really nice stipend for travel allowance that we could, splurge on these incredible trips every year and stuff. So we lost a little bit of that when we decided to move somewhere that had more stability, and we changed our contract to being a resident, which means that they could no longer just call us and say, hey, you're moving tomorrow. So we traded the mobility for stability, and we also, took some financial setbacks, but we felt like it was worth it because we'd saved up money. We had 2 incomes in engineering. And we're now living like what I would say is my dream life in Norway, because we love it here so much. And we've really just made this home. And now we've, had 2 kids here. We have 2 homes here, and we are considering, this is our future. This is where we're going to stay.
I'm so curious. You said that you knew at a young age you wanted to have an international lifestyle. Did you go into oil and gas because you recognize that would give you the opportunities that you were looking for? Or like, how did you pick that?
A little bit. Like, I was always really good with math and science, and I loved it. And I had a high school teacher tell me, like, you should look into engineering. I don't have any engineers in my family. I was the first one in my family to go to college, and we don't have any family that lives internationally. My parents never got a passport until I lived abroad, so.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, so it was kind of really out there, but they had always instilled in me, like, we have a very strong family base. Like, our family, not even just my core, but the extended family. I like to, consider the attributes that gave me is, like, I always had this really good foundation that was behind me, and I knew I could always go back if, things got a little crazy. So that always kind of gave me the confidence to go and explore the world and do these things. But I think I was smart enough to understand that oil and gas at the time when I graduated was booming, and people were seeking, like, I had 3 job offers when I was starting my senior year, and great job opportunities. So I think I was like, okay, I'm a female in a very male dominated field, and there's so many opportunities with this, and I really enjoy engineering, and it's related to earth and mineral sciences. I've always had a strong connection to the earth and nature. So, and I felt like I could contribute things that were innovative and forward thinking, and that's kind of why I got into it. I think it was strategic, but also like something that I felt like I could do a lot with.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, and I think I always tell people it's so much easier to move abroad when you're kind of like young and building your career. You can take a lot more risk, right? You don't have kids, you didn't have a husband at this point. Like, you could kind of really define who you are, and you can kind of be a little bit scrappy if you need to be, right? It's so easy. So I love that you just followed that dream. And I would encourage anyone listening to this who's thinking about moving abroad, like, follow that dream. And even if you're older, you can still explore. But obviously there's some different risk considerations than if you're, 22 and just starting out and able to just kind of like take your knapsack and go. I was like kind of in the similar boat with you. I really knew I wanted to go abroad very, very young, and was willing to just kind of figure out how to make it work. So I think that's so cool. Okay. So take me back to, you're in Africa, and you and your husband decide that you want to be more stable. Did you have like a list of countries that you could pick from? Or how did you decide, like, how did you pick Norway?
Yeah. So in short, like, we didn't pick Norway. We got very,
Okay.
I think there is some like weird manifesting and just like luck that also played into it. But in a position with us, like there's two of us, so they have to do two international moves in a company as big as us, 200, we have, at the time, it was like a little over 100,000 employees globally, right? So big company you're talking about here. And, we're also two different nationalities. He has a Saudi passport, I have an American. So kind of like figuring that out. And we're both engineers, so we can't report to one another. So the company has to take time. So I think we started talking about our move maybe like a year before it happened. And they started looking for opportunities, and they put you on a list for like, these are people who want to move and we want stability. So they have certain countries that are green. Like we were working at the time, I was managing operations across 26 countries in Africa, and a lot of them were high risk countries, right, for security and safety and health. So we wanted to go somewhere that was green, that had a good healthcare system, that had good safety and security. And so those kind of countries they were looking at sending us to. And I didn't want to go back to the States because that was also an option, right? But I was like, I still want to stay somewhere abroad. So they came up with a few different places, I think. And there was also something within our relationship dynamic, like one of us has to be the lead in the career. So I was the lead in the career, and they look for a position for me first, and then they find a complementary position, which I think they do in quite a lot of companies when they're relocating to people like that. So yeah, so I had a door open for me, but I would say it took maybe like 10 months-ish before we started the conversations. And then like I had to obviously like they had to bring somebody to replace me in Africa that was international. So the whole thing takes time. You have to be really patient, but it was worth it. And then when we ended up in Bergen, Norway, we didn't know anything about Bergen, but my husband had always said, I really want to live somewhere that has mountains, that is next to the ocean, and has snow. And I was like, coming from the States, I'm like, I don't think there's like anywhere, like very few places like that. And especially in like in oil and gas, I'm like, I don't know if that's going to happen. And you really can't see out my window right now, but there is snow, there's mountains, and there's the sea, like literally right out our window. So I don't know. It's
Wow.
kind of crazy how that happened. And we didn't find Bergen, Norway. Like it just kind of found us, like weirdly.
Oh, I love that though. And I think though, if you have discussions with yourself, with your partner, I really believe this. And I really, it sounds crazy, but I really do think you mentioned a bit of manifesting. I do think like you have to say what you want.
Yeah.
Like it's, you kind of have to have discussions and you have to think about it and you have to look for opportunities. Like life doesn't just happen. You kind of, you have the opportunity to create a life. And it sounds like that's what you guys were able to do.
Yeah, yeah. And we're going to get more into, I'm sure, like life in Norway, which I just feel so grateful and appreciative for because life is easy and lovely. And we're one of the happiest countries on earth, like ranked over and over again. But like we worked really hard to get here. And like we know what it's like to live in other countries that you don't necessarily have all the opportunities that we have now that we can give to our kids here. So it's pretty amazing.
And I do just want to take a pause and moment and say you and your husband are both non-EU citizens, right? So you're
Hmm.
basically both like the third country citizens in Europe, right?
Yes.
As we would say. So it's a lot harder. It's a much harder path to get into Europe when you're not EU and when you are like a third country passport holder, which US citizens are in that group. And so I think it's just important to also say like your job provided a huge part of this opportunity.
Hmm.
And I want to highlight that because I think people sometimes can just think that, especially Americans, we have this assumption we can just show up anywhere, and that's not really the case. Especially a country like Norway, you really have to have a reason to be there, right? Is it an economic reason? Are you working for a company? Do you have enough money where the Norwegian government is just happy to have you? There's not a lot of like remote work opportunities or, to be in Norway unless you know something that I don't, which if you do, I'd love to share that on the podcast for
No,
people.
I'm actually glad that you brought that up because I'm here on a skilled worker work permit, right? My husband and I both we're engineers in the oil sector. So we were brought in here as skilled workers. So it's a totally different process when you're applying to work here if you're a skilled worker because you're demonstrating that you're able to do a job that a local can't do. Because they want to hire as many locals as possible, obviously. So yeah, that was a
Hmm.
big part of us both being able to move here and also stay here.
Yeah. Yeah. So this goes back to years of decision making. And yeah, that's why I say it because I do know Norway is one of those countries where I hear people, I would love to move to Norway. And it's like, okay, what are you adding to Norway that they actually want you to move there?
Hmm.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the cultural shocks that you first arrived, like that happened to you when you guys first arrived, both personally and professionally. Like, what was it like to go from, you're on an assignment in West Africa on that kind of those globally mobile executive assignments to now you're a local working in Norway. What was that like?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was actually a pretty big culture shock just to be more in like a Western country again. Like things at work were, they have really good boundaries, which are incredible, but it was a little shocking. Like at 4 o'clock, the office is empty. Like everyone is gone and they lock the office doors after 5. Like they don't want you there. They want
Wow.
you to go take your rest and reset and come back refreshed. And my personal experience is that I worked also in employee productivity in Norway here. People are way more productive when you're working like that. It's just insane. And people are just they get along better. There's better teamwork. It's so different. So that was huge. I was like, everyone's leaving at 4. Like I used to leave the office at 7 and then I'd get back on a conference call after dinner. Like it was it was so different. So they really respect boundaries and work-life balance, like actually legitimately. So that was a big shock. And I think also just how everything moves so efficiently here. Like I was kind of used to this idea of like taking mass transit is not reliable and can be dirty and
Hmm.
it's like a second class type thing. But here, everybody takes mass transit. It's very clean and it's very reliable and it's incredible. And most families only own one car here. Some people don't have any cars here. And it's, you take the ferry, you take the bus, you take the B-Bahn, we call it, which is like a tram train. But yeah, I think that was the other thing where it's like, oh my God, everything is so efficient and everything is so well planned that to make the people's lives easier here. Like every single thing they have in place is to make your life easier as a citizen or as a resident. And you can just see it, you can feel it. And that was huge. Like there were things I was noticing from the States growing up that I'm like, oh my gosh, we should be doing that. Like why aren't we doing this yet?
Hmm.
Every time my parents are coming here, I'm like, oh, yeah, we should be doing this at home. So I think that was the other big shock was just like how efficient a lot of things are here that I wish the US could catch up on. And yeah, that work-life balance. Those were like the two things that really stick out.
So tell me more about work-life balance. The office, like basically everyone's leaving at 4. And what
Mhm.
about days off? How many days off do you get in Norway?
So everyone has, and it doesn't go by seniority, like everyone's entitled to a certain amount of days. Like, so we have 25 days off per year, like vacation days. And then you have holidays. They do give like Christian holidays here. So it's like Easter, but Easter you have like Easter Wednesday. So you have like almost like a week of Easter break, which is a big one. And then also Christmas and New Year's, they give you like the day before, the day after Christmas, New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. You have almost like 10 days-ish off like those periods of the year, plus 25 vacation days. And then, and I would say as well, like I said, the office closes at 4, but obviously the company that I was working for and the operations are 24/7. So if you're working on overtime hours, like there's always people that are on call, but there's like a really strong system of who's on call and you're getting compensated really well for that, which was different from some other places I had been working before.
Because you're still working for an American company at this
Yeah.
point, right?
Yeah.
You're just in the Norway headquarters. And it's interesting to me, like there's all these jokes, and I know this from like I've worked in Germany and Switzerland. There's a lot of Europeans love to make fun of American work culture, which is like kind of nonstop, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, was there like any pushback? They're like, oh no, the American has arrived in the office and she's going to work over her lunch break and be in the office till 9 p.m. Like, I mean, did you feel any of that?
No, because it's crazy. I mean, any office globally that you were walking into for this company, you're gonna find like at least 20 nationalities probably sitting in the same building, like at least or more. And it's a US based company, but like you're pretty frequently on the call with Asia looking for something with supply chain and Africa looking for something for people to come up. Like you're before the pandemic happened, we already knew how to like remote work for a long time, right? Because we're
Mhm.
all over the place. So they're used that culture is instilled in you from the beginning. So not really. I think we kind of you get kind of like used to everyone's different work style. Everyone
Mhm.
has a different way of approaching things. But I did learn from the Norwegians, I would say, how to develop my soft skills a lot more. Like they like having a lunch all together is really important. They don't want you sitting at your desk eating lunch, like things that I did before I came here. Like everybody sits and a lot of times like a really big problem gets solved over eating. Or going and
Right.
sitting and having a coffee for 20 minutes and just chatting it up with somebody. I used to kind of always think like, oh, that's wasting time. But I saw all of a sudden like, oh, they do this to solve problems and build relationships. Like they want you to do that. And then I started realizing like that's actually an easier way to get things done than being so like quick, just like I need this thing and then get off the phone. So that was really interesting to kind of learn how they do that here.
It's so funny that you mentioned that because I see that also in Switzerland and in Germany as well. And it's still hard for me sometimes to
Hmm.
switch, right? Because I'm like, I just move quickly. I'm from the Northeast. Like we're go, go, go. And it's hard for me to just like breathe and be like, no, we're having lunch with our colleagues and it's okay. Like it's okay to have time to sit and be with these people that you work with 24/7. And some days, yeah, we're solving problems, and other days we're just talking about someone's
Hmm.
vacation, but it's such a different cultural aspect. I love that that you made that point. I know we're almost out of time, but I really want to get a little bit to the kids because you moved here to have children, and I'm really curious if there are some highlights that you want to share about raising your children in Norway and what maybe some of the differences that it would have been like if you had been stayed in the US.
Oh my gosh, yeah, there's so many. I mean, I was kind of highlighting like everything that the country does, and we do pay, like people say, like we pay a lot in taxes, which we do. Like I was, yeah, I'm usually paying like almost 40% a year in taxes of my salary, but I have never had an issue doing it because of what I've seen that they do for families so far, which has just been incredible. Just from like the prenatal care and my birth experience, like we have a university hospital here in Bergen. They have just it's like a birth center in the hospital, and my first birth was a C-section. My second one was a VBAC, a natural unmedicated VBAC. They supported me through both of those. And, I had like a pelvic health specialist come to the hospital right after my C-section, and we had nurses come
And
to our
this is all
house.
included.
This
Like
is all
there's no
included. This is all
bill
free,
after.
100% free.
This is your healthcare. Okay.
This is our healthcare. We have nurses come to our house right after the birth to do baby visits. We had a lactation consultant come to our house. We had a sleep expert come to our house because we had trouble with my second one sleeping. All of this is included. We've had zero bills for any of this. So my
Wow.
daughter, with also not getting into too much, but like my daughter had an ICU experience almost 2 years ago now, where she was intubated in the ICU for a week. And also then she had a recovery period in the children's hospital. And I was like floored at how incredible. She had two nurses with her around the clock. She had a physical like a physical therapist massaging her. We had just like this incredible care. And even the children's hospital was like floor to glass windows. They had clowns that were like bicycling around to like lift spirits in the children's hospital. We were next to like the cancer like pediatric cancer ward as well, so I could see like everything that they're doing here, and I would never ever complain about the amount we pay in taxes because you can just see, and that's just like what I've seen so far. I hope I don't have to go back to the hospital with the other things,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
and then I would also just say as well, like once your kids turn 1, you're allowed to have them in something called Barnahaga, which is basically preschool until they are 6 and they start grade school. So from 1 until they turn 6, they're in this program called Barnahaga, which is my kids are there right now. It's a program that is the best way to explain it is like it's a forest school. It's nature-based learning with Montessori, so it's like very like children
Mhm.
led. They spend almost the entire day outside. When they're napping in their strollers outside. Like you've probably seen on social media, like the kids outside in Scandinavia napping in the snow and in the rain, and they're all like bundled up in all their layers. And they just are like instilling at such a young age that you should get outside no matter what the weather is. Like we're in the rainiest city in Europe, but people are outside all the time. They have a really strong connection to nature. And they're also teaching them that like resilience and confidence at such a young age. And they're also just teaching them a lot of like things that I don't think I knew going into kindergarten and first grade. Like they know the solar system, they know the body parts, like all these, like my 3 and 5-year-old. And it's also been incredible because they're bilingual already. And we don't speak any Norwegian in our home. So they've just learned that
Wow.
from being at Barnahaga every day. And it's
Would this be the
extremely
equivalent
affordable.
of daycare? Like, is this like 9 to 5? Is this
It's the
8
full
to 12, like,
day.
what
Yeah,
is this like?
it
It's a
starts at
full
7
day.
a 7
Okay.
a.m. until 5, so that you can have them all day. We usually do like drop off around like 7:30 to like 3 right now. But yeah, the whole day. And for me to put 2 kids there all day, and they get warm lunch. They have a kitchen. They like bake bread. They do like fish soup. They have all these like really healthy meals. They do field trips. It's like around less than $300 a month for both kids.
Wow,
Yeah.
$300 a month. Okay,
Mhm.
so this is where tax dollars are going
Mhm.
to
Yep.
supplement these amazing programs. And
Mhm.
is it up till 1 because the first year you get really good parental leave? Is that why it starts at
Yes.
1?
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. So
Okay.
parental leave, every single company here, like it's mandated by the government, and the government gives a supplement to the companies, right? So you get parental leave almost 1 full year paid. When I like added my vacation to it, it was about 10, 11 months. So almost 1 full year. And then my husband, which is different here as well, the partner, the man, also takes paternity leave, and it's about 4 to 5 months, which is just insane. And they take it at the end of your leave. So when the mom goes back to work, the father helps transition mom back. So he's home with the
Wow.
baby.
That's
Yeah. So the baby gets to stay
yeah.
home with one parent for both of our kids for about 18, a little over a year. We had both at home with one of us
Yeah.
every day. Yeah. And we didn't have to worry about our income. We both were being paid our normal salary the whole time. So it was, yeah,
Wow.
pretty amazing.
That's amazing. I talked to a lot of different expats in a lot of different countries, and Norway, I mean, Norway's program seems amazing. So I can understand why, yeah, you're happy. It's a steal. For you to have 2 young children, it's a steal. You would pay probably more in the US to have the same lifestyle if you calculate
Oh,
the
yeah.
tax, what you're
Yeah.
paying in
Yeah.
taxes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'll ask you one last question because I know a lot of people are going to be listening to this and be like, wow, raising your family in Norway sounds amazing. So anyone who's considering moving to Norway or any of the Nordics or really anywhere, what is kind of like one piece of advice that you would give them to kind of help them get this process started?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to what we talked about a little earlier, just like figuring out what you would bring to the country. I think as Americans, like this has been in the news cycle a lot too, and I'm not trying to make it political, but like if people are coming to the States, we're expecting them to have a skill set that they're adding to the country, right? So as an American, it's the same thing. If you want to move abroad to a different country, they're going to be expecting that you're bringing value to the country. So thinking about like what skills you can most likely find this online, what positions are they hiring for right now? Are there American companies that have a footprint in the Scandinavia region that you could work for? And you might have to do some time in the States first before you ask for an international assignment. But, doing some research on that, it's so much easier to get over here if you have a U.S. company supporting you with that move. Or, just doing some due diligence and some research on what types of positions they're short of expertise in that you could help with. And the other thing I would say in general is when you're choosing somewhere to move abroad, think about, like we were just touching on, the benefits and like living there full time, not just like the glitz and the glam and like the cool Instagram photos and stuff, because some places might look exotic and incredible to live in, but they don't necessarily always have the infrastructure and support and stability that you might want, especially if you're moving with kids. So that's something to consider too, like really doing some more digging of what does life actually look like there every single day versus after just like having a week vacation somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And we tell everyone to really think about if you're going to explore, everyone should do an exploration trip, right?
Mhm.
Like make your list and then go and live like a local. Don't stay in your 5-star hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Go and live like a local, book an Airbnb, walk around, shop the grocery stores. Where's the hospital? How does public transportation work? All of those points, that's going to have a huge impact on your day-to-day financial or day-to-day life and also your finances as well,
Yeah.
right? Some countries are really easy to get into and they're really cheap, but you're paying out the nose for everything else. So it's important to kind of really weigh what each country offers you, and then, like you said before, but what you offer that country, right? That's really, really important. Monica, it has been so wonderful to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today and telling us a little bit more about Norway. It was super interesting. Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Arielle, for having me. It's been so nice. Thanks.
The content shared in this podcast is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered financial, tax, or legal advice. We encourage you to consult with a qualified financial advisor, tax professional, or other licensed expert before making any decisions based on the topics discussed. Everyone's financial situation is unique, and personalized guidance from a trusted professional is the best way to ensure your choices align with your individual goals and circumstances.